Hi everybody, this is Chad Carrier here, product manager of Torq, and I'm going to be giving you a little walkthrough of all the new features in version 1.5. So let's just jump right into this. I'm going to start basically from the top, up here with the new toolbar that we've got in the software. That's one of the most obvious changes in Torq 1.5 when you first load it up and take a look. The GUI is mostly the same, except for the addition of a lot of new buttons and displays up here. So what we've done is, just starting from the left, you've now got a global tempo metronome. So you hit this button and you will hear a click track in your headphones letting you know where the global tempo is at any time. So if you need to mix anything or drop in anything on beat, you can actually hear where that tempo is if you're trying to sync to external MIDI devices or anything else. And as a visual reminder, there's 4 little LEDs right next to it that will start chasing when global tempo is on, so you can actually see what beat you're on. Downbeat's green, followed by 4 little beats afterwards. Master tempo has now been called global tempo because, as you'll see in a bit, it's now possible to use other sources such as the decks in Torq to actually work as the master tempo for the whole software. And then right next to this, we have our normal zoom controls along with the hide phase grid, plus the new edit anchors button. This is the button that we'll be using in a minute to edit the new tempo anchors in Torq so you can deal with songs that have varying tempo. Right next to that, we've got 2 new buttons and displays. This right here is the new MIDI indicators. So this button's going to light anytime MIDI information comes in, and this one will light anytime MIDI goes out. So it can help you diagnose any sort of troubleshooting setup problems you might be having. You can see if MIDI communication is established. And then right next to it, we have a little CPU meter, so you can actually see how much resources you're using if you start loading a lot of EST effects and things like that. All right, right next to it, we've placed a lot of buttons up here that are basically duplicates of what's already in the preferences inside Torq. So instead of having to open the preferences window every time you want to change a setting, you can now just click on a lot of these buttons. This button right here turns external control, your vinyl and CD control, on and off. Just click the button, turn it on and off, so no need to go into the preferences menu for that anymore. This turns amputate mode on and off. And then this button right here enables the new skip protection feature that will make sure that music keeps playing even if the needle on your turntable should skip because someone jumps too close to it or bumps into the coffin or something like that. Right next to that, you've got your tempo sync mode. This is a mode that was currently just in the preferences dialog, but now you can toggle through bar, beat, and tempo just by clicking on this button, so you can change on the fly. And right next to that is a little pair of dual arrows that, when enabled, engages the new quantize feature in Torq, which will make sure that all your cue points and loop points snap to the nearest 16th note in the song. And then right here, this little triplet guy enables the shuffle mode. So you can enable the triplet counts in any of your effects if you're using any sort of songs that are in triplets. We've also given you a new snapshot button right up here, so if you aren't even in the snapshot view, you can just click that button to capture whatever you've done and create a new snapshot. And then you've got all your regular view buttons up here, including the new hide mixer view. Now when I click this button, you'll see that not only does this mixer disappear from the center of the screen, but also the 2 VST windows here on the side. And we also kind of consolidate some of the controls from the decks to give more space to the browser. Just click that button, and now your browser is basically taking up half your window. So it's a little easier to find some music now on a widescreen monitor. And of course, you can still maximize the browser if you need to. And we've actually given you like mini deck views up here, so you can drag songs right into the decks and actually see how much time is left on each song when you're in this view. And then you just have your standard buttons here for entering preferences about, minimize, maximize, and quit. So that's the new toolbar, making things nice and handy for you. The next thing I'm going to talk about here is new features that we've added to the decks, the playback decks inside Torq. And these basically have to do with new looping features. And the quantize feature. I'm going to return to our regular view right now just so we can see the buttons a little easier. Currently in Torq, you have the ability of creating loops 2 different ways. You can use the quick loop buttons, which are these 4 right here, that will just capture a loop of that size, 1 bar, 2 bar, 4 bar, 8 bars. In fact, I can get some music going here. hit the 1 button, and we capture a little 1-bar loop right in that area. Okay, hit the 2, and it'll be a 2-bar loop. Okay, and we can disable it and then just let it play straight through. The other option we have is using the manual in and out loop buttons. And prior to Torq 1.5, Torq would always make sure that the length of any loop that you create using the manual controls is always some number of 16th note long. That would kind of help keep the loop in sync with your music, but it also meant it was possible to make a loop that was, for example, 15 16th notes long. Just, a shade under a measure long, which if you did that would make the music fall out of sync with another track that you're playing. So one of the new features that we've added is right down here where it says, where it's the loop out mode. Two options. 16th is the mode that everyone is currently used to who's been using Torq this whole time. But now if you switch to Smart, Torq is going to do something a little different when you use the manual loop points. It's going to make sure that the loop that you create is some power of 2 in length. So it might be half a bar, full bar, 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, but none of the other iterations in between that might cause a loop to fall out of sync with the other song. So even if you happen to click a little early before a downbeat, Torq is going to place the out marker where it needs to be to ensure that you get a proper loop. So check it out. I will click down here and up, and Torq actually waited to the end of the second bar before triggering the loop. So even though I clicked early, I still have a musical loop size left here. So whichever way you prefer, just go ahead and set that in the preferences and you're good to go from that point on. But we've also got one other preference that changes the way loops work, and this one changes the way the quick loops work. Right now there's 2 options here for quick loop mode, and that is cut and grow, which is what everyone's currently used to in Torq, where when you press the quick loop repeatedly, it cuts the loop length in half, but if you hold shift and click the button, it grows, doubling in size every time. This new direct mode works a little bit more like a CD player, in that after you create a loop using the quick loops, you then use the quick loop buttons as divisors of that loop size. So I could create a 1-bar loop and then press the 2 button to cut it in half, so it only becomes 2 beats long. I could press the 4 button and it only becomes 1 beat long. Press the 8 button and it becomes half a beat long. Check it out. So there's a little 1-bar loop. Now I'm going to cut it in half, maybe in 8s, and then back to full size again. So this now allows you to jump around in a loop size very quickly from small to large, without having to go through the various steps in the cut and grow mechanism. And then finally, we have quantize, which we can enable right here up in the toolbar, but is also available in the preferences just right here, loop Q quantize. You can turn it on and off here as well if you'd like. And as you can see, when I was making some of the loops here, I was able to put the loop marker in a little bit before a beat. And that was creating some weird loops when I was just doing this little demo. But with quantize on, this isn't going to be possible anymore. When I click loop in point, it's going to make sure it's at the nearest 16th. So I'm actually going to get some cleaner loops here. Let's try it out. Click here. And as you can see, we've got a loop point perfectly on the downbeat, right there, even though I clicked a little bit early. So having that on is going to make sure that even the quick cues that you put in place are going to be lined up. For example, I could play one here and just drop in like 3 quick cues really fast. And as we can see, those 3 quick cues that I made are now lined up perfectly to the grid. I did not do that by pressing the buttons exactly on beat. Torq made sure they snapped into that location. And the nice thing about the quantize too is that if I turn it off, I'm now free to make loops and quick cue points that don't line up exactly on the beat, but it will still leave any ones that I had created earlier lined up. So you have the best of both worlds. Turn it on, everything you do is quantized. Turn it off, everything you do is free.